Good morning, Dickinson, from Western North Dakota. The men and women coming in blue, coming at you straight off the cuff, stumbling right out of the gates. We'll see how episode 5 goes now. Jeez,
it's all off the cuff. That's what we're about.
Good morning, Lieutenant Hannell.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Things are good. Fall weather,
and school starting. So that's one and the same.
Yeah. I mean, both of us being dads here, I think that's it's a big part of what today's going to be about, and a big part of the conversation of our listeners there. So anybody who's tuning in, I think real quick, you need to make sure as a parent, share this and get them listening in. There's going to be some real critical things that I think will be beneficial.
I think so. Yeah, we've come a long ways with interaction with the school district as far as our relation with the school resource program. So we got Sergeant Brandon Stockie in here today to talk about that a little bit. But it's an exciting time. My boys are really excited to get back to school, which is crazy. Genetically, neither me or my wife were ones that really were excited about school. But this year, especially, I think just coming off of the COVID and the distance learning, they're still gung ho about wanting to go back to school that first day. So that's always a good thing.
A couple little hell raisers.
Absolutely.
And the same for me. This is our first out of the gates, and so you got those first kid jitters, trying to figure this out. And anybody that's hearing this, it's like parents. There is no book on this. Obviously, I've talked to I don't know how many different parents, and you guys in the room here, which are fathers, and there's no rule book. And so
none whatsoever.
Figuring it out as we go along here.
And obviously a big shout out to the teachers too in our district. We got some phenomenal teachers, and all last year how they had to do double effort on getting the distance learning thing figured out. And now that we're somewhat back to normal and hopefully into smoother sailing waters here for a little bit. But we have big shout out to you guys for all you do for our kids and keeping our community educated up.
I know some of the stuff that they were dealing with coming off of that COVID year and numbers that were withheld last year, certain parents not sending their kids because of different things happening with COVID. At the kindergarten class this year, talking to Mr. Luton early on, I think they went from a 350 expectation to like a 380 expectation within a day or two.
Isn't that crazy?
So, the impacts for them as an organization, definitely the heart goes out too, because that's a difficult thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so that's just, I think you were saying at the kindergarten level, I'm sure there are other stories there that could be had for the difficulties that they were dealing with. But I think it's a good one here for the parents listening. I mean, from the Dickinson Police Department standpoint, and correct me here, Mike, if you think I'm wrong, but Chief Dossinger gets excited about a lot of different things. But when we start this discussion, which he wanted very much for our listeners, talking about the kids and the youth and the schools, it might be the conversation that gets most serious most quickly. I don't know.
And it has to be the one that is the most beneficial to the community anyway, because we're fostering the future leaders of our community and getting them in young, having that initial interaction with law enforcement right out of the gate. So we're viewed as partners and not us against them. That's why it's been such high in the priority list for us as a department to have a strong SRO program. So I agree with Chief on that, and I'm glad to see where we're at as far as the department and our interactions with the SRO program.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk history today on a few different levels, but I mean, you and I both started here, and the program did not exist as far as SRO, and now we are here today with several, and I think the aspirations of going bigger are. And doing more things. More things are definitely on the table.
Yes, especially even that we're taking a lot of cues nationally. A lot of good programs that have been vetted over the years, and we're getting really deep into those programs, and we're reaping the benefits of that because of just the interactions that we're having with maybe even the lack of interaction that we're having with kids in the community as far as in a negative basis, them committing crimes and whatnot. It's still there, but for the most part, I think we're viewed as cooperative in nature. So it's reaping benefits.
Oh, well, and I think to look at our page, and if you go flip back through our social media feeds and such, and I would guess that 3 out of 4 of those feeds that hit that are community related and such that you cater and you put together. My kids, children, a focus for many people in the department that are parents and we have a lot of young officers that are still kids at heart that love getting with those kids. I mean,
Right.
so, when they see them with their helmet and the ice cream, the free ice cream cone stickers and stuff like that, handing them out, or just an opportunity at a lemonade stand. The list is what it is on our Facebook page, but people go take a look. We care about the kids. And so.
And it's just that one interaction that kid might have, really early on in their life, and they remember that. I remember that. Dickinson police officer early on, at the daycare I was attending, coming up and just visiting with us a little bit, showing us the squad car, honking the siren a little bit, and right then and there, you make that initial first impression that law enforcement, they're here to help.
Yeah. Well, I know we don't have a lot of time with the man today. Maybe we should kick it over for the introduction.
Let's do it.
Our special guest. So, Mr. Brandon Stockie, how are you doing this morning?
Good.
How are things in the world of Stockie's family, and what's happening?
Kids are back in school. Got 4 kids. 3 of them are in school. One's in college. So she's starting college. That's a huge thing as a parent. Kid graduated last year. Joined the National Guard and now going to college. Scary times.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that here a little bit, I know. But I think for the people listening, Brandon, there's a lot that are going to know you because you're a local. You're a guy here that's born and raised in the area. Important part of the department and where we're going, and the type of people that are great to have as employees for relationships with the community. So why don't you tell some of the listeners a little bit about yourself from the beginning?
Yeah, I was raised in Richardson, North Dakota. So small town kid, go Raiders.
Go Raiders.
Played 9-man football, a little better than 11-man, not as cool as 6-man, but played at 9-man football, which is a fast action game. Graduated from Richardson in 2000. Then after that, joined the Army. Left for the active Army on June 4th, 2001. So September 11th is coming up, so I thought I'd bring that up, that I was actually in basic training in infantry school during September 11th.
Yeah.
So that was kind of big, actually being in and that happening. And
How? Maybe you'll slow down and just talk a little bit. That's a pretty neat story. Where were you at, and how did that thing all unfold in front of you? How do you remember it?
yeah, we were in infantry school at a live fire range, buddy team movement. So one guy shoots, one guy takes cover, that kind of thing. And they stopped all training and told us to take our stuff off and hang out. So we actually thought we were just having some downtime, which never happens. No radio, no TV, no phone back then, nothing. So we knew nothing going on. We sat there for a couple hours. Drill sergeants came back, loaded us in a bus, and took us back to the chow hall, which we watched it on TV then. So kind of big eye opener. Joined the Army pre-war, 20-some years ago, and then getting into that after that was
What drew you into that and wanted to go to active? Right out of high
family
school?
members. Yeah, family members were in. Had a couple uncles that retired from the military, so that kind of thing.
What
was a
about
family thing?
why the Army itself? What was the draw to the Army?
My grandma wouldn't let me be a Marine. Her house, my grandpa was a Marine, so she said that was off limits.
Did you ever share that story with Sergeant Mosier?
No, I have not yet. So I joined the Army. Didn't seem like the thing to do. Went infantry contract and airborne school. So
Do you remember? So how old were you then, Brandon? Again, at that time,
18.
just 18.
Yeah.
I know 17, 18, 19. But could you feel the hair on your arms raised? I mean, you guys as young men at that time, do you remember any of that sorts of feelings or the talks or what was, watching that thing unfold? How did that all? Can you elaborate at all on that?
Yeah, it was exciting. You're young, and that's what you enjoy to do. And it was kind of like just exciting. The unreal feeling is happening. Drill sergeants yelling at you that you're going to war, you're all going to die. Kind of amped up that training. The guy who, my battle buddy or the guy who slept above me in the bunk was from New York City. So it hit him hard. So I got to see that emotions. He got to call home, make sure all his family's okay. So that was kind of, being a North Dakota kid.
Because where were you guys at that time?
Fort Benning, Georgia.
In Fort Benning.
Yeah.
And from New York, did he have any family or anybody impacted by that? Obviously.
Yeah, impacted. They were all okay.
Are all okay.
Like none were in the towers or anything. So.
Sure.
And so now you're with like the 101st at this time, right?
No, but I was just in training still.
Just in training?
Yeah.
Okay. What at what point, because you eventually wound up with the 101, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so got done with infantry school, then went to airborne school, I had a unassigned airborne contract, they call it. So I went to airborne school. I did that. Decided to join airborne. I was scared of heights. I wanted to overcome that fear. It worked. So I got to go through that 3-week process of jumping out of planes, which was exciting.
That baffles me. You know, I've had a pilot's license, but as long as I've had a driver's license, and it baffles my mind that anybody would want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But what drew you to that? Besides just the heights?
I was scared of heights, and I wanted to overcome it, and it was fun. It was it's a rush. You jump out. It's really windy. You have you free fall for that 4 seconds before your chute opens automatically. And it's just windy, and you see plain ground, sky, and then all of a sudden it's just quiet. The chute opens, and it's just quiet, and it's peaceful, and you jump from 1,200 feet. So
how many jumps do you have to make before you get qualified? 5.
Yep, 5 jumps in airborne school, and then you're qualified.
Any of those nighttime jumps in?
Nope, have
you ever done a nighttime jump?
I have, yes.
How does I've always wondered that. How do you? I mean, daytime you see the ground coming, and you can prepare, do your parachute landing fall, tuck and roll. But how do you do that at night when you don't see
guess?
You guess.
You guess.
Oh, good grief.
Just an educated guess when you feel the ground hit.
Did you ever have an interest in the halo stuff? Any of the high altitude?
No, that's a little too high for me.
Okay. Yeah, and I can't say too much for this. As you know, Brendan, I am deathly afraid of heights. So 8 feet off on a ladder and going over a ledge 4 stories high, watch me white knuckle that thing.
Yeah, and shake like a leaf.
Shake. Yeah.
I think a lot of us were wishing we had a camera that day. I think for the listeners, that was a SWAT training course that they just decided to go do some rappelling that day off the tower.
Yeah, we went to Minot, right? Was it a Minot?
Yeah, I would prefer we don't elaborate too much to the listeners here so they can't hear it. But yes, it was. It was a traumatic experience in my life that going over the edge of that 4-story there. And actually, Lieutenant, there is a video that does exist, but
we got to track that down somehow.
Yeah.
Good Christmas party material.
He tried to go faster before anybody could see it, but we got it on video.
That's a true story. I tried to get over the other side before you guys could watch me because I knew you'd be videoing me.
Yeah,
scared. But
good stuff.
And being born and raised, and you're back here now, but taking off on this journey. I mean, and you'll reflect 20 years. Sometimes you got to stop in a conversation like that and think about it. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Doing that for the Guard, and even for us at work with you, Brandon. Thank you for doing that. And appreciate the service there. But some of the specifics. I mean, talk how, the things that you did a little bit. Maybe elaborate on what you want the experiences where you traveled to Africa, right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I joined the active Army first. Like I said, went to airborne school. After that, graduated in airborne school. That's when I got my orders to go to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with the 101st. That was exciting because I like history, and the 101st is a huge history in World War II, the Battle of the Bulge, everything else. So it was cool to go with a unit like that with that history behind them. So went to Fort Campbell, got to my unit, learned how that plays out, what you do there, and then got deployed in 2003 to Iraq when the Iraq War kicked off. So I was there for a little over a year. Got to see American military might at its finest. And after Iraq, I was still in for about a year, and then got out of the Army and moved back to Dickinson, North Dakota.
So that time, spent, a lot of literature out there. How much did you grow as a young man?
Oh, a lot, yeah. Deploying to Iraq, you grow a lot seeing that and going through that. Just seeing a third world country and how they live. You are very blessed to be from where we are and, have all the stuff we have. I went 3 months without a shower. First time I got wet was in the Euphrates River, which is probably one of the dirtiest rivers in the world.
I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the first time I got wet after 3 months and changed clothes, so that was kind of nice. I got to experience a lot of nifty things.
Early on, you talk about your daughter and stuff. How excited are you to know that you get some family history passed down here now, or the lineage and what I want to say here, for lack of a better word here, you get to pass on this military tradition to her, and she's going on with it?
Yep. So after I got out of the active Army, I joined the North Dakota National Guard. I'm still currently in there, and she followed my footsteps, my wife's footsteps. My wife was in the National Guard as well, and she joined and just came back from her basic and AIT in 2 weeks ago. She got back, so
Okay.
it's kind of nice to see her career take off and see where that leads her.
Sure.
What's her MOS?
ADA, Air Defense Artillery, yeah.
For those listeners that don't know, what's MOS?
Their job in the military. Yeah.
And so at some point here, law enforcement comes into play.
Yep.
How does that come into the scope?
So I came out of the Army in 2005, moved back home to Richardson, kind of between jobs, figuring out what I want to do for a living, and started working at the jail. And from the jail, I realized I liked that first responder, that law enforcement career, that you get tight with the people you work with. So I applied for the PD in 2008 and got hired in August of 2008.
And a little bit as your career has progressed here, maybe for the listeners, or how's your career progressed with the PD?
I started out on patrol, like everybody does, stopping speeders, chasing calls, all that fun stuff. And then got promoted to corporal 3 years later and stayed on patrol for a while. Got moved to investigations to do a year rotation back there. So did that for a year, got moved back to patrol. Then I got moved back to investigations again and did, I think, another year, and then got offered a position as an SRO. We had an SRO that was leaving, so got an offer position at the high school and decided to take that, and the rest is history.
I think at that time you were the sole SR. We hadn't expanded the program yet, right?
Correct. I was the only one, yeah.
That's right.
I think you're leaving out a big part of it, though, here, a big part of the career. You're thinking big time, a big part of what you served as a secondary duty here for the police department, not SWAT.
Oh, yeah, the SWAT team. Yeah, did that for a while. Yeah, did that for a long time, actually, 10 years probably. So
How is the balance for you in being in the guards and pairing that up as a first responder and shift work? Can you share that all? I mean, there's a few that do it, but it's a unique thing, and I think it'd be worth talking about for people.
Yeah, it's tough, especially on the shift work side. It was easier as my career progressed, and I went to Monday through Friday. But beginning with the shift work, the guards takes a weekend a month out of that, and if you only have 2 weekends off with your family, that takes one of those weekends, so you only have 1 weekend off. So it's tough. It's tough to balance both. Both of them are careers. Both of them offer different schools, different things, different trainings, and it's hard to decide which way you want to go on it. You got to decide which one's your priority, and I picked law enforcement first, but still in the Guard, retire October of next year with 21 years in, so I'm kind of excited.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think about being a local guy, born and raised, guards, you get to branch out, you get to touch the rest of the world at some point, right, at some level of your life, and have these experiences with some different cultures and becoming more, we'll just use worldly, and then you come back and now you got your family here and your kids and stuff, and you're serving your own community here. Many kids, they have a perception when they're growing up. We're talking about schools and education today, so I find this a little bit relevant that, they leave, they want to go, and they want to go do all these other things. They want to leave home. And you're kind of an example where you left home, you're kind of back here. Can you maybe message that a little bit to, the young folks that that are going through the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, experience it. Go, you'll realize that what brings you back to North Dakota, the people, the culture here, how it's slower paced in those big cities. I lived outside of Nashville for a while, spent a lot of time in Nashville, and it's crazy. Different culture, different aspect of life. And so you get to come back here and realize why you enjoy it here. I mean, most people do come back, and that's good. I mean, we live in God's country, so it's great.
So you had Africa, you talked about Iraq. Any other countries you were visiting?
No. And yeah, I went to Africa 2 years ago, I think. Spent 2 weeks there. I actually got tasked to train police tactics to the Benin military police. Went to Benin, Africa.
How many was that?
There was 23 in the class. So taught them for 2 weeks. That was really interesting. Again, a third world country. Just to see how they live their life is always interesting.
What kind of stuff did they want to learn about American law enforcement?
Just what we do, our tactics, our use of force. I learned their use of force is different. Like here, someone comes at you with a knife, you can use deadly force to protect yourself, you can use a gun. I said that to that class, they all kind of got freaked out because in their country, their rules, if someone comes after your knife, you have to have a knife as well. So
That's
the
crazy.
whole bringing a gun to a knife fight doesn't work there. Knife and a knife.
Wow.
So yeah, I got the, it was tough. It's a French-speaking country, so I had to go through a translator. So that was kind of goofy to teach and have a translator translate for you. So you had to have that pause, and I talk fast anyway. So that was tough, but no, it was a good learning experience.
What was the age group? Do you know how old they were?
In their 20s.
20?
Yeah.
All men and women?
A couple women, yeah.
There were a couple women in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I say that as obviously in Africa, you know how different cultures rest
Yeah.
with some of that. So
Yeah, and I thought it was talking about women and men. The translator we had was a female, and as we progressed in our relationship, getting to know each other, she told me and my buddy who was with me that she was Muslim, and that her best friend's Catholic, and how they go to each other's holidays, they go to each other's different traditional holidays, and how it's not an issue there, which is nice. I mean, that's kind of cool that they can bridge that religion gap when you have that issue in third world countries.
So you mentioned, obviously, it was a police mission down in Africa, and pair that into maybe how is the mission for North Dakota National Guard now? How has that changed from when you first got into where it's kind of almost more of a military police type mission for the most part? Is that specific for your unit or statewide? Or
Yeah, so I'm a military police officer now with National Guard. So that has changed from when I was infantry. And just how the United States itself has changed with that and with that response. North Dakota responded to D.A.R.E, as we know that, to give that civil support. I did go to D.C. on the inauguration day this last year for civil support there. So there's a lot of those civil support missions now that the Guard's taking over to help local law enforcement, which is nice.
there were several stories ran about the guards out there during the Capitol time. Was that part of the group that you were with?
Yep, I was in that beautiful parking garage. It actually wasn't bad. It was, heated. It was nice. We were there for a couple hours, so
Taken care of.
yeah.
Taken care of. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, because we joked about that a little bit when we were back, and it was your firsthand take of that was a little bit different than what was published.
Yeah, correct. But after being in the military for that long, you get used to sleeping anywhere. So to me, it was no big deal. To other people, it might have been a bigger deal.
optics,
Yeah.
generally, yeah.
Brandon, it's fall, it's school, and things have increasingly fell onto our the school resource officers world, I guess, in the last few years, from the growth end of it and just to daily job responsibilities. Obviously, I have you right now, right? We work together all the time, and that communication is, it's every day, multiple times a day. There's, I'm firing stuff back and forth, and it's a busy pipeline for our agency. And so maybe let's talk. Because you are, I think, our longest tenured SRO, maybe now, if
Correct.
not, right
Yep.
there, and give a little bit of the history of our SRO department. Maybe talk our people through the mission and understanding what our SROs are doing there, what we want them to be doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So the department started with the first SRO in January of 2007. So that's before I started here. I think you guys were both working here. I was not yet. But January of 2007 is when we first started having SRO in the schools, based out of the high school. And that was status quo until I took over later on. I think I started 4 or 5 years ago in SRO world. And same thing, I was the only one for the first 2 years I did it. And then the school district and us had some conversations and got a second SRO.
Why?
Population growth. Our schools got bigger. Schools got busier. The new middle school was built. So that was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade together. Before it was 7th and 8th grade at Hagen, 6th grade was at Berg, if everybody remembers that. So that population growth, they felt a need for it. I was getting busier in the schools, trying to respond to our 7 elementary schools, our middle school, and our high school. So we got a second SRO. Put that SRO, I was Officer Winnery at the time, put her at the middle school, and she was there for a couple years. And then 2 years ago, again, the school district and us had a conversation, and we had got a third SRO starting last year. So last year we had our third SRO started. That was Taylor Peters, and he's at the high school now.
And all those buckets have quickly been filled, would you
Yeah.
say, as far as their day-to-day stuff and, what we're expecting them to do or being busy?
Yep. So they, like our mission or our job in the school, I think people believe that we're there just to, I guess to put it bluntly, harass kids, get them in trouble. But that's not our job at all. We're there to educate. We teach a lot of classes. Our SROs are in the classrooms, talking to kids, teaching them either D.A.R.E. We have a D.A.R.E. program for the city where we teach all 5th graders and 7th grade D.A.R.E. They're just in there having those conversations with the kids about like driving, talking about what's legal, what's not legal, why you get stopped by the police, how to act when you get stopped by the police, and answer any of those questions high school and middle school kids have about our job. Then we're also there as informal counselors. Kids just pop in our office just to talk. They went out this weekend and they seen something and they want to talk to someone. So they come in and talk to us about it. And then we're there for safety and security of the school. Anything that happens on campus, we're ultimately responsible for the safety of all of our kids and our staff members. So that's why we're there. Those are our big 3 things.
What about some of the programs that are primarily ran through our SROs? Can you talk about a few of those that the SROs are doing in the schools right now that parents might want to hear about? And
Yeah, like I said, D.A.R.E. is a big one. With D.A.R.E., we teach all 5th graders and all 7th graders, and that's really big. We started that 4 years ago, and we've grown with that program. I think we have 7 D.A.R.E. officers now. So we teach that.
And this is like a different type of D.A.R.E. because I think there's some misconception, maybe not say around here, but in the United States, that D.A.R.E. was originally the just say no type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's the old D.A.R.E. program. And this is an entirely new program within the last how many years do you think since this new one is rolled out?
I think they changed it 7 years ago.
About 7 years ago. So can you highlight some of the main differences between old school D.A.R.E., if I should call it that, and today's D.A.R.E.?
Yeah, that old school D.A.R.E., which I think a lot of our age remembered it, if you went to D.A.R.E. when you were a kid, was those pictures of before and after using those scare straight tactics they used. That showed that doesn't work. You can't really scare a kid straight. It doesn't work at all. So they revamped it, and now it's all about decision making. So we go through different decisions on everything you do in life. Every day you have to make a decision from waking up and eating breakfast or not, and how that decision can have a negative or positive consequence to the rest of your day. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what we talk about is decision making and how to have those excuses when you're in bad situations. Using your parents, texting them, having them pick you up, how you can do that and how that can look and make you not look like, not a good kid, or that, getting peer pressure to do it, how to get away from peer pressure, stuff like that.
Have you been able to gauge like a response or an effectiveness? Do you have any maybe anecdotal case studies on any examples of kids that might have come up to you afterwards and say, yeah, I use this this technique or got me out of a situation? Or
the big thing it does for us is it gets us in front of those kids, and those kids remember us. We have kids who graduated 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that still remember us from teaching them D.A.R.E. It's hard to show what a program like this can do because you can't show that a kid would have or would not have committed a crime. So I think that just showing those kids how they bonded with us, how they trust us now, getting those uniforms in front of those kids is just a win for us as a department.
Because I think a lot of listeners that will, tune in that are paying attention to the parent and the drug stocks, like it's a problem right now among our youth. We know that as far as substance abuse, to a degree.
Yep.
And, we have a program like this and, it's been there for 4 years and stuff. So I think it's important that you highlight, some of these maybe even secondary or third, impacts of it. Not necessarily like a kid doesn't ever do drugs, but there's some other things there that, you can highlight for them.
Yeah, there's some other programs we do. We do driver's ed in the summer, help with that, with Alive at 25. We kicked that off this last summer.
What's Alive at 25?
It's a program on just texting and driving safe. It's a state program. Officer Peters does it, so he would know more about it than I would. But it's a good program for that, just keeping those kids safe on the road.
Okay. And current day now, we got some things in the future. I think our SOs are going to be a part of that moms and dads want to hear in the schools. Right? We've been just before we got in here, coffee talk related to in the spring launch in 2022 our CTE program potentially.
Yep. With the schools changing to a CTE based program with different career routes kids can choose and go to. We are launching a law enforcement track, or criminal justice track in the schools. So I'll start this spring. We're excited about it. Excited to have our SROs and our other staff members teach kids in school on what criminal justice does and what law enforcement does. So that'll be a track we're going to go down and keep, and it's going to replace our youth academy.
Yeah, that was going to be the thing I brought up here is the youth academy, because prior to this, you kind of ran the youth academy for several years as well. And do you kind of envision it being kind of run similar to that, or what are some of the maybe the topics or the aspects that we're going to cover in the CTE?
Yeah, it's going to
curriculum.
So it's going to cover criminal justice as a whole. So it's going to cover everything from law enforcement, corrections, prosecution. So we'll have prosecutors come in and do some talks. So it's going to cover that big umbrella of what criminal justice does. And so, like I said, I'm super excited about it. The school's excited about it. I think some of the kids are excited about it. So,
are there going to be any hard skills, as part of this, or this is going to be all, soft skills stuff?
Yeah, they're going to do some ride-alongs with us. They'll do our virtual machine, which will be fun for them. Some handcuff techniques, stuff like that. No real shooting, but.
Yeah. And I think, a punchline to this if you're hearing this is like, we want moms and dads to be raising good children that want to serve their community, stay here and work for the Dickinson Police Department.
Or any first responders. I think we're all hurting for that. This generation doesn't seem like it's staying away from that aspect of life. So just trying to get that back into them, that helping their community out. Be it even if they go on their bad side and go on fire, it's still okay. They're still helping their community.
Yeah.
I think we had Kelly Armstrong, obviously, a couple episode ago here, and one of his big things was stressing the importance of hiring local and recruiting local, because of any type of field or industry or something like that. So it's programs like this that are going to really reinforce that we want to keep local, and you just automatically have that community connection already started. So the big importance of that.
Yeah, I think, and it all pairs in with, Chief Dossinger's ambitions and mission, and, some of the achievements with moving forward with our public safety center here locally, the CTE thing, trying to build a hub of you refer just first responder sort of breeding grounds for our folk here, because that's a big part of long-term employees for us.
Yeah.
So. Times have changed over the years, Brandon, right? From 2007, when this thing began in the schools, a little bit from, the criminal justice system, philosophies, things like that. And, you were here when you weren't an SRO. What are, in your opinion, what are some of those changes that you've watched over time to where we are now? This year, we've just had some meetings this year with some of the legislative stuff and some stuff that the listeners would want. And I think those changes, you could talk about pairing them with the big stuff you guys get from parents or people in the community, their questions, or when they have issues with how something is done. So, there's a few things there you could you jump off into, but.
So, the big change is that Juvenile Court Reform Act that took place this year, where it's just, before there was, a kid committed a crime, we cited a kid, and so
Can you give a specific on a crime? So that's
like a felony or above, kid, a major assault in a school, a threat of serious injury or death in a school, that kid would get arrested and taken to YCC in Bismarck or Mandan, Youth Correctional Center. The big change on that now is there's more steps involved with that kid. You can't just, we went away a long time ago from locking kids up and just leaving them there. Now we're more into controlling that action or controlling that change in behavior. So there's more mental health support through the courts, more emotional support that's now taking place.
Okay. It's still there if a crime is egregious enough?
Yes, it has to be so to go to YCC now or Youth Correctional Center, it has to be a felony or above with that serious bodily injury or death.
Okay. Now there's some criteria that you guys have to follow as part of that too. You guys have a form and such like that the juvenile courts make us use?
Yep. It's a like a matrix form. You got to score, pretty much scoring a kid, filling out some boxes about what the crime was, some background of the kid to see if they scored high enough to go to the correctional center.
And that was developed, I believe, by our juvenile division?
Correct. From the state, yes.
Okay.
Some other big changes that happened since I started, it used to be 8 years old to commit a crime in North Dakota. Now it's 10. So that was a change that took place a couple years ago. So you have to be 10 years old to be criminally capable of a crime. Before 10, they cannot be. And then the tobacco change that President Trump took or put in place that went from 18 to 21. That was a big change for us in the schools because now it's everybody, no matter if they're a senior in high school at 18, they still can't possess tobacco. And we've seen those numbers skyrocket in the last couple of years.
Okay. The parents' questions for you guys, and if you get an angry parent calling in, he's like, "Well, what good are you doing right there? What do you aren't you guys supposed to be this or supposed to be doing that?" Those conversations that that we've all had to get on our end. Understanding them, like your role again there, what some of the work through the steps there when a situation happens at the school with the kid, how you move forward with your decision making and process.
Yeah, I guess the big thing is it's tough with parents when they call and their son or daughter is a victim of a crime because they want to know who did it to them, right? You want to know which kid hurt your kid, and they want to make sure that something's done with that kid. Well, how the juvenile system works is they're juveniles, I can't give that information out. So that's right away a big headbutting session with me and that victim's parents because they want, like I said, they want to know, as a parent, I would want to know too, who hurt my kid, and are you going to do something to that kid to make sure that kid doesn't hurt my kid again? Are the big questions you get. It's like I said, it's tough because you can't give that information out. You just got to assure them that yes, we're taking those steps. We are doing those steps that we're supposed to do to make sure that your son or daughter is safe and that kid sees this day in court. But it's hard to get that through without giving that information out because you're not allowed to.
What about hard numbers? Dive into some of that you've watched over the last few years that you think would be important for some listeners to maybe would catch them off guard. Vaping, cell phones, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that and anything else there maybe you think is relevant. But the big stuff that's a chore for you guys.
Yeah, vaping is a huge issue in our schools and in just our juvenile population as a whole. Not even in the schools, but in our community. Last year, with the hybrid system that was in place with COVID, like you guys talked about earlier, last year, it's a goofy year. We still had 33 tobacco violations in the high school. That's down from 54 the year before. So our SROs are catching kids with tobacco, mostly vapes, every day almost.
And so it's classified as if it's a tobacco violation in our system. It could include a vape as well.
Yep,
Okay.
It's a vape, anything that has nicotine in it. Be it a vape, regular cigarettes, chewing tobacco, stuff like that.
What are some of the devices you're pulling off of kids that are vape related and something for parents to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean they're nifty. I've seen we got a watch once that looked like an iWatch, like a regular old smartwatch, and you took the face off it, then that was a vape itself. So these vape companies are being creative with how they make them. I went to the vape store to look at the watch after I found it on a kid, just to see it again, see how much it sells for, just kind of educate myself on it. And the guy who at the vape store told me they sell it to bikers, pedal bikers. So when you're pedaling your bike, you can still vape, is what he told me. But it's unique.
Okay.
So those, and then everything that looks from like little flash drives that look like to bigger, vapes. They're all different shapes, sizes, colors, flavors. I mean, you name it, they have them made. So
How many, tobacco versus the marijuana vapes, THC, the wax and stuff like that? Can you talk about the differences there, or how's that playing trendy right now?
yeah, THC vape devices are big. We're seeing a lot more of that. I think we already got a couple this year, the school year. We're only a couple weeks in school. Last year we had 16 drug arrests at the high school. I'm guessing a majority of them were the THC vapes. Those are hard for parents to tell the difference between that and a regular vape. You have to kind of know what you're looking for. And most time with kids is they're just honest with us and they tell us when we catch them that, yeah, this is a THC vape. That's all. Those are coming from those legalized states, those Colorado, Washington areas where it's legal for it, and that's where they're being manufactured at. And yeah, it's just a new trend that we're seeing, a new way to do drugs.
Any advice to parents from your end that could help your job be a little bit easier inside the schools?
I guess just having that conversation with your kids, talking to them about this kind of stuff, that there is, vapes out there and the dangers of that for a health consequence later on. Just having that open conversation and just watching your kid.
Because many kids, it seems like when this gets brought up, they come back with right away wherever they read it or they saw it, that this isn't bad for us, like a cigarette.
Yeah, that's what they believe. That's what they believe in. But we're seeing as vaping's still a newer way to ingest tobacco and THC than cigarettes have been. Cigarettes have been here since, I don't know, beginning of time probably. And we know the health consequences of cigarettes because we've studied it so long. Vaping's new, but we're already seeing that health consequence with that popcorn lung and those other issues that people are getting from it.
Sure. What else?
Assaults. I mean, we see fights. High school kids and fights have been happening as well since there's been school. So that's nothing new, and it's not going up or down, staying the same, but there's fights in the school, and disorderly conducts. And that's a lot of that mental health aspect we're seeing in society now and in our local area and nationwide. There needs to be more mental health help for kids and adults, and we're seeing some of that impact with our youth for disorderly conducts when they act out in school.
Are you aware of anything through your training, school resource stuff? Because one of your titles in the state through your school resource position is, out loud, I'll botch the title of it there, for the state. You are a director?
I am the SRO regional rep for the Southwest.
There you go.
Yeah.
So through those contacts and those committees and stuff like that, the mental health end of it, how much are they talking at all about that being attributed with cell phone devices, screen time access through certain things, social media platforms?
Yeah, that is talked about a lot. We're in that technology age where everything you do is with either a computer or cell phone, something along a smart TV, along those lines, and that's what these kids are getting that stuff from. I have that talk a lot with parents with just that aspect of when we were younger compared to these kids now. When I was younger, growing up in Richardson, I knew what's going on in Richardson. That's it. These kids know everything now. Everything's on the touch of their fingers. Every song they listen to talks about drugs or alcohol or tobacco, even country songs. Everything they watch on TV has that violence in there or that drug or alcohol relation. So they're getting just so much of it pushed on them that they know so much more than we did when we were younger.
And, when you're dealing with that age group as a teenager, brain's still developing. Kelly had told us, I think in the last one, I liked it to coin it. It used to be, treat others how you want to be treated. Now it should be like, well, if I wouldn't say it to your face, I shouldn't say it with my thumbs.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And we just see so much of that, right?
Yes.
From the investigation world. Cell phone devices that we end up confiscating for stuff like this. Can you elaborate the history of how that's kind of been working over the last few years? And
we pull a lot of cell phones for either that cyberbullying, which we see us in the schools, or any inappropriate pictures, that sexting side of things. You have to be 18 years old to send and receive naked pictures of another 18-year-old. And there's kids that do it when they're younger than that, and we have to deal with that for that crime. A lot of cell phones get pulled, and then we hook them up with our cool device we have and get all that information off, and then educate those kids about that crime.
Parents, that age range from when you first started till now, okay, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Brandon, but has probably went down, a couple of years to the kids that are actually with that kind of behavior that we've came across. Is that safe to say or not?
Yep. I deal with elementary kids with that behavior, with that either that bowling or those pictures on their phones, all the way to high school kids. I mean, it touches everybody, touches all that those ages of kids.
I know there's some, don't cite me on this, but there's a neat documentary out there, The Social Dilemma, familiar with it or not, but at the end of it, it talks some whistleblowers in there that are talking about they're the developers of these platforms and such. Well, then at the very end of it, they're across the wide spectrum of these tech companies, and at the end of it, on this blanket statement here, so correct me if it's wrong to some extent, but almost all of them do not let their children have smart devices until like 16, 17, 18. And then there's some that don't even allow screen time at home with a device at all. It was pretty alarming. The very people that have designed these platforms, knowing that these platforms are targeted at, getting this kid's attention on all the stuff that's put in front of them. I think it's interesting for parents to hear.
Yes, it is. And it's like you said earlier in the beginning, there's no playbook on being a parent. So you got to figure out what works for your kids and yourself, what you feel safe with and not. Me and my wife don't let any of our kids have any social media until they turn 18. That's a rule we had. My daughter graduated from high school and still had friends, still went to places, still got invited through text messages. So that does happen. They don't need that Snapchat and Twitter and Facebook and everything else. But you have to decide as a parent yourself what you want to do, how strict you want to be and don't want to be. I'm a big believer that kids, when it's bedtime, turn their phones in upstairs, stays close to you. They don't need to be on their phone all night. But again, you got to figure out what you're comfortable with.
Sure.
Yeah, because there's just so much at stake. I mean, you almost feel bad for kids nowadays. I mean, even as parents, the world that these kids are growing up to. And Brandon, you had talked about the pressures earlier, how all the pressures that our kids are facing nowadays. So, you as a parent, taking that strong stance and not allowing that sort of technology. Don't enable that. I mean, we all know the dangers of it. I mean, it's and for us as parents, we're kind of the ones that have to kind of stand up and ensure that our kids are free of that stuff, be able to develop.
Yeah, and I think even as us adults, we go down the same road.
Yeah.
I mean, how often are we talking, grab our phone and go turn on Facebook real quick or something like that? I mean, we even have to disconnect and learn those limits. So for adults, if it's tough, I mean, without that control on a kid, it's going to be just as tough, right? Or tougher for a kid.
Be vigilant. I mean, you got to stay vigilant. We all get complacent in this room from time to time, but the reminder, I think the message out of this to those that are listening is you just stay vigilant. And I think our parents' generation, the Britannica, going and finding an encyclopedia, when they wanted something, and they might not even find the encyclopedia, so they might go without an answer for a decade. Yeah. But for the kids now, it's just, hey Siri, right? And there it is in my phone, just jived. I just and it's in front of them. So man,
that's crazy. It's crazy how much technology has moved since even 2000 till now. Look at hybrid last year with kids staying at home and learning a school lesson from at home on a tablet. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was unheard of when we were in school. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just a nifty. There's been good things about technology, and then there's been bad things. So just be careful with it.
Yeah. Where do you see the future of the SRO position going? Even whether it be just here locally, some of the talks that we've had that I know we're familiar with off camera and stuff you could share. Where's this thing trending for you in your head, and what you guys are going to and gals are going to be expected?
Yeah. Well, I think we're blessed to be where we're at. In Southwest North Dakota and North Dakota in general. We had that big movement the last couple of years with trying to get cops out of schools. There's that national movement of that side saying they're not needed there. They, getting kids in trouble, where at the same time we added positions here. And North Dakota itself added positions in schools because we see the benefit of that, the benefit of those cops in the schools helping our kids. So I think we'll keep on going down that road. Our school district's growing, our community is growing, which is awesome. I'm excited. Hopefully, that brings more businesses in, more stuff for us and our kids to do. And with that, I think our SRO program's going to grow. I think we'll add some positions as the years go on and get more cops in schools and keeping kids safe.
Gotcha. Well, we know it's not a perfect system, but it's pretty good, I think, and our community feedback has been pretty outstanding as we've talked throughout this. And then I think that for our listeners, following our school resource officers, paying attention to them, maybe learning more about them, what's going on, you got a couple avenues for them?
Yeah, we got our own Facebook page, Dickinson, North Dakota Police School Resource Officers. We have it on Facebook, so definitely like that, follow that. We put a lot of good information out. And then the Dickinson regular PD Facebook page as well. We kind of piggyback off each other. So all that good information there, or just find us in a school, talk to us, come up, introduce yourself, get to meet us. We'll tell you what's going on with kids and trends and stuff like that. So.
And we also have the text to tip program that you're running as well.
Yeah, we have a text to tip program for kids, for anybody in school, for anything with bullying, violence, stuff like that. Where that's been huge. I think last year I had 117 throughout the school year of text to tips. So that's just another outlet for those kids to talk. And sometimes it's just to talk. Just my friend's having a hard time. He or she's depressed. Can you help her? Him. So that gives them that outlet where we can help them and find help.
Okay. And did you give the number out loud? What the number is?
I believe 117.
For the text to tip number.
For text to tip for the last school year.
You know the number offhand? The text to tip number offhand?
260-7804.
260-7804. 7804.
We'll put that in the comments for the show comments too. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. Mike, do you got anything for Brandon? I mean, he's an OG as I refer to Sergeant Mosier and him. He's been here for a long time. We got him teed up.
Yeah, and it's again another officer here is real privileged to work with. Brandon's very well respected, especially in the district, the school level. The level he's taken our SRO program is just amazing, and I'm really proud of him and the work he does, and all the tasks that once the plate kind of gets a little empty, then there comes another spoon load, but he's always just how high do I have to jump, and he gets it done. So it's an honor to work with them, and I'm just glad he's part of the team.
Yeah. Speed cuffing.
There we go.
You at least give me the questions before, So.
That's not how it works.
I wouldn't do
No.
that. So, Mike and I came up with a little list of some stuff here, and you know what speed cuffing is all about, Brandon. But the rules merely are: we're going to give you 30 seconds to get through as many of these as you're possible that we come up with. If you can't come up with anything, that's okay. You can just pass and come back to it later. But you should have fun with it anyways. So listeners, we've had some good feedback from the listeners. They kind of like seeing what you spitball. So
all right, I'll make some stuff up.
Okay, we got 30 seconds here on the clock, and as soon as you hear the music key up, that'll be the first question. Here we go.
Truck or pickup?
Pickup.
Would you rather jump out of a C-130 or a C-17?
C-17.
Hog hunt or a turkey hunt?
Ooh, turkey hunt.
Is the Screaming Eagle looking left or right on that patch?
Depends which side you wear it on.
Traeger or traditional smoker?
Traditional.
Bay, sorrel, or gray-colored horse?
Bay.
Name a V-Day parachute drop mission into France?
Pass.
That's good.
Operation Market Garden?
Yeah, couldn't think of it fast enough.
So that's good stuff, Brandon. You have anything finish up past that? Last comments or from your position?
No, just hoping for a good school year. Go Midgets and Titans. Just supporting all the local schools and.
I think proactive parents, proactive involved parents, right?
Yep. Have those talks. Have those hard talks with kids. They're like I said, they're seeing all those drugs, alcohol, tobacco stuff on their phones constantly and everything they watch. So they know about it. So have a conversation with them. Tell them about the dangers of it. Give them that out of that peer pressure where they can text you. Have that safe word.
Okay. How about for you?
Right on.
Kind of handle anything?
Yeah, that was good, man.
All right. Well, for everybody that tuned in today, we want you to make sure to share it with all of your parent friends, anybody else that you think may benefit from the conversation. This is what it's all about. Share us, like us. You got us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, YouTube, our Dickinson PD Facebook page. We're there.
Chuck Rummel's coming up.
Yes, Chuck Rummel, ex-chief of police, Chuck Rummel, coming up in the next episode, number 6. Thanks, everybody.
Tune in.